In Cold Fear, we take control of Tom Hansen, your typical American Coast Guard who, along with his crew, is sent to investigate a Russian whaler after a military group went MIA. However, for some reason, once they board the ship, Hansen, like the lone wolf he is, goes exploring alone while the rest of the team checks out another part of it. But it doesn't take long for everything to go to hell, because his teammates get attacked by something. And since one of them has the extraction code and the ship they arrived in has left because of the weather, Hansen has no other option but to search for them. So he begins exploring the ship, coming across locked doors, a scary looking man outside a window, some safety hazards, and some Russians trying to open a door, who are not that friendly. Hansen then clears the fire that is blocking an entrance, hears a woman screaming from the other side of the locked door, finds a strange corpse, and comes across more Russians and more blood and corpses that paint a picture of what might have happened here. Which, let's just say, must have been pretty gruesome.
What the hell is that?
Oh, and thanks to some notes, Hansen also learns that a man named Yusupov bought an oil rig and equipped it with a jammer so it could work in the shadows, since he's in cahoots with a shady organization called the Cartel. That this oil rig was very lucrative until some strange creatures began crawling from the depths and attacking the workers, that this ship was bought and modified by the Cartel to serve as a secondary research lab that could transport specimens back and forth, as requested by a doctor named Kamsky, and that this doctor seems to be researching these creatures, which they call Exocells, not only out of curiosity, but also because Yusupov took his daughter away from him and has her as collateral. Hansen then reaches a room where he finally finds his teammates, or, well, one of them, who has the extraction code he needs to get out of there. Although before leaving, a mutilated, hurt, and bloody Russian starts crawling towards him, asking for help. Which he gets.
Holy!
After fighting more Exocells, surviving more hazards, and finding a specimen, Hansen is able to reach the radio room, which is locked.
I have to find a magnetic card.
So he goes looking for the key, which takes him to a room where he finds it. But here, he also comes across some tentacle monsters that come out of a whale's carcass. Back in the radio room, Hansen uses the code to get some help, but instead of a rescue team, a CIA agent named Bennett answers and basically tells Hansen that to get him out of there, he first needs to find a person of interest who might know what's going on. A person named Dmitry Yusupov. So Hansen then reaches the room where he saw the strange man at the beginning and finds Yusupov, who is not that well. Because of this, Yusupov tells Hansen that if he wants information, he must find a girl named Anna who was locked inside one of the rooms, and also gives Hansen a weird-looking gun before a freaking tentacle monster bursts out of him. Once he dies, Yusupov drops his diary, which not only has the codes to unlock some doors, but it also describes how Anna has the fury of a real Russian woman. Okay. Hansen then contacts Bennett and freaks out about what he just saw.
Mother of God, Bennett!
But Bennett calms him down and tells him that since Yusupov is dead, he needs to go find the captain of the ship named Lubensky. And even though Hansen tells Bennett about Anna and how she could be more important, Bennett tells him that she is probably just a Russian hooker and that he needs to focus on Lubensky. So Hansen decides to go look for her. And after seeing how the Exocells invade the human body, fighting a new kind of Exocell, killing more monsters, and finding a note written by Yusupov that basically explains that Anna is Kamsky's daughter, Hansen reaches Anna, who is wary of him at first. But once he tells her that if he wasn't a friend she would be dead, she calms down a bit and tells him that she doesn't know anything. But you know who does? Her dad. So after Hansen reads a letter written by Kamsky, which states that he is sorry, that his work means a lot to him, and that he will give her an extraordinary life, Hansen and Anna go back to the radio room so they can contact him. But instead of Kamsky, they get a hold of a man named Pavel, who tells Anna that her father is missing and that she shouldn't go to the oil rig because it's dangerous. So Anna decides to go to the oil rig. And even though Hansen is like, fuck no at first, Bennett orders him to do so because, well, he is a Coast Guard and her dad needs help. But there's a tiny issue. The autopilot is locked and the code to unlock it is inside the captain's room, which is locked too. So Hansen then finally reaches Lubansky.
I found the captain. He's a corpsicle.
And after getting the key, opening the
unlocked.
captain's room, and reading something about an antidote created to stop these things from infecting someone, Hansen sends the autopilot code to Anna. And with this, the ship is now going to the oil rig. But since the weather isn't the best, and the ship is, well, not the best either, docking isn't an option. But don't worry, because Anna has a plan, which goes something like this. Once they are near the platform, they jump.
You're out of your mind, woman!
And after Bennett tells Hansen that he needs to disable the jammer or he won't be able to help him, Hansen meets with Anna at the master.
Hurry up, Hansen!
And against all odds, the sons of bitches make it! Kind of, because Anna loses her grip and Hansen heroically goes after her. But sadly, he doesn't save her and also gets infected. At least he is on the platform though, and here he meets an old man hiding in the medical wing before fainting. This man turns out to be Dr. Pavel, and once he saves Hansen by giving him the antidote, he explains to Hansen that he and Kamsky were there to learn more about the Exocells and how to control them so they could use them as weapons, but Kamsky began using them for other nefarious reasons, and that's when all hell broke loose. Hansen doesn't seem to care about any of this and asks him about the jammer, which of course is behind a locked door that can only be opened with the eye of a guy named Anishchenko, who is the head of security of that place. Pavel then exits the room, and after reading a letter from Yusupov that seems to be addressed to the Cartel that explains how the experiments are going well and that the creatures are very creaturey, Hansen exits the room and finds Pavel waiting for him. Oh well. After fighting more on different exocells, killing more Russians, and reading some notes about how these exocells might be some kind of mutated deep-sea creatures that exist thanks to the nuclear waste the government dumped nearby, how Kamsky seems to be glazing them too much, how Anishchenko got that job thanks to Yusupov, and how Yusupov was worried that Pavel was a spy for the cartel, Hansen crosses a bridge that is filled with bombs and finally comes face to face with Anishchenko. With his eye at hand, Hansen is then able to access the room where the jammer is, and he destroys it. And thanks to this, he gets in contact with Bennett once again, who doesn't seem to give a fuck about Anna's well-being, and tells Hansen that if he wants to get out of there, he needs to find Kamsky's computer and upload all the intel it has, but Hansen seems to be fixated on saving Anna. So Bennett tells him to check out the cameras of the place and see if he can spot his girlfriend. This, for some reason, makes Hansen regress to a child and say,
She's not my girlfriend.
to which Bennett answers,
Oh, that's right, Hansen.
You get your girlfriend shot, not eaten by monsters.
Damn.
But plot twist!
turns out Anna isn't dead yet, because a big-ass creature saves her and also tells her that someday she will understand. Oh, and she also gets infected, which Hansen sees through one of the monitors, and although Bennett tries to convince him to just look for Kamsky's computer and forget about her, Hansen starts looking for an antidote like the one Pavel gave him. This takes Hansen to the deepest part of the oil rig, where after falling into a weird and very fleshy room, he gets infected. Again. Hansen then wakes up, comes across a creature that looks very familiar, fights more exocells, learns from a note that Kamsky seems to be wanting to use these creatures to improve the human body instead of using them as weapons, and finds the antidote. Oh, and he also has some fun. Now he only needs to find Anna. And he does. But even though both of them are infected, Hansen decides to give the antidote to Anna before fainting. He then gets woken up by Bennett, who is asking for the files, and Anna is nowhere to be seen. Given the fact that Hansen is infected, that place is crawling with monsters, and that there's no way to get out of there without any help, Hansen comes to an agreement with Bennett that once he has Kamsky's data, Bennett will take Anna to safety. So Hansen begins looking for the computer, and through this search, he gets contacted by Anna, who he thanks for saving him. And she tells him that they need to destroy that place, but since Hansen doesn't have too much time, he says no. And after fighting more exocells, Hansen finally finds Kamsky's computer. And also a letter written by Kamsky addressed to Anna, where he is basically explaining to her that he is now very powerful and very immortal, thanks to the metamorphosis he has gone through, and also that he must destroy everyone and everything that gets on his way. Hansen then begins sending the files to Bennett, but once the antidote ones are uploaded, Hansen stops and tells Bennett that if he wants to rest, he can come get them himself. So I guess no more deal? Because of this, Hansen contacts Anna and agrees to destroy the place, but to do so, he needs some C4. Hansen then, after getting, planting and detonating these C4s, goes to the helipad, where Anna is waiting for him. Oh my God!
Papa?
Anna then, after planting the remaining C4s, heads to the helicopter while Hansen tries to block Kamsky from reaching her. But even though Anna is now in the air, she can't save Hansen until Kamsky is dead. Hansen then gets into the chopper, and while they fly away from the place, Anna is like, "Papa, I'm sorry." And Hansen is like, "Goodbye, Papa."